Hey folks, we've got another content collaboration for you today. This is my new buddy, Felraus. Felraus, welcome to the channel. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on, Colred.
You are very welcome. We just did a video over on Felraus's channel where we talked about a live arena, kind of getting into live arena as a newer player or as a free-to-play player. I thought it was a great topic. It's really cool. So definitely go check out that video. I'll include a link to it in the description of this one. And then, yeah, we're going to talk here about you. As always, when I do a new content collaboration the first time, we talk about you. We have an interview with you. I hope you're ready for it. I'll be gentle. Don't worry. It won't be a problem. And then on top of that, we're going to talk Hell Hades free-to-play challenge. So we've got a couple of cool topics for you today. Hope you stick around for it. He is Felraus. I am Colred. Let's get started. All right, so like I said, as we normally do here when we have a content creator on for the first time, is we do a little bit of an interview. So if you are already watching Felraus here, then this is going to give you a little bit more background about him. But if not, hopefully this will convince you to go watch his channel, because I caught a live stream of yours and I thought it was a very entertaining live stream. And then we were talking, and you actually live stream almost every day, don't you?
Yep, every day except Sundays. Yep.
So 6 live streams a week. So if you like live streams, you should definitely check out the channel. But let's go back. Let's start before content creation. Let's just talk about gaming, because you and I are from different generations. So I'm really curious to find, what was your introduction to gaming like? And, was it as similar or completely different to mine? So what's the first game that you remember, like, early on in your life that you were super passionate about, which made you think, oh, maybe this is something that I want to get into?
Well, the first video game, I should say. I've always been a gamer as far as like physical games go. But the first video game and the only video game I played up until about a year ago was Minecraft.
Okay, yeah.
And yeah, because Minecraft was super popular as I was growing up. And it continued to be popular for quite some time. Now it's, I think, falling off a little bit, but I'm not a Minecraft content creator. I have no idea. But that was the first video game I played.
All right. You know what's interesting is I just went to the movies with my wife, and literally there was a preview for a Minecraft movie starring Jack Black. They're doing a Minecraft movie. So you hit mega, like, game status. Like when they did a World of Warcraft movie or a Final Fantasy movie, there are only a few games they turn into movies. And Minecraft is getting its own movie. And I have to say, it didn't look completely awful. It actually looked okay for a video game movie. But that makes sense, right? When we talk about generational differences, like there are certain games that tend to grab people who were born in certain years. And for you guys, it was Minecraft. I have a lot of friends, gamer friends in the same kind of, age range who love Minecraft. How did you transition from Minecraft to a game like Raid Shadow Legends?
Well, it was actually by the recommendation of a friend. So I had a friend, and he was like, "Hey, let's play this game together." He had played a little bit before. I think he was about a month in at that point, but he hadn't really gotten into it. And he was like, "Hey, maybe this is something that we could try together."
Right.
So he sent me like his referral link or whatever. I downloaded the game. I had no idea what I was doing, or if I would even be interested in it. But here we are, about a year and 2 months later. Yeah, I will be completely. When I first started playing Raid, I sucked at it. It was actually laughable how bad I was at Raid. But then I got into it. I started learning about stats, about gear, all that kind of stuff, and I actually really enjoy it. And I think it's certainly an entertaining game. I'm not sure I'd put it. I personally prefer like trading card games.
Sure.
As far as entertainment goes, but Raid is an extremely entertaining game to play. Lots of strategy involved. I really like Live Arena and Hydra. I think those are my 2 favorite areas. But that's kind of how I got my start in Raid.
I would say, because I played Magic the Gathering. I've mentioned that before. So the trading card genre, collectible trade, whatever. They have different names for the genre. But there is overlap, I think, with Raid and gacha games, in the sense that if you think of a deck as a collection of skills, right? A team composition is a collection of skills. and you're trying to like put as many skills in as you can and keep that deck nice and thin, right? So you get to them really
Mhm.
quickly. And so there are strategic and tactical overlaps between
Yeah.
raid and collectible card games. So I'm not surprised that both grab you. But
Yeah.
just out of curiosity, quick question: is your friend still playing raid?
Is still playing Raid, and
Okay,
I actually got him into some of the trading card games
awesome.
that I would play.
All
So
right,
it was kind of overlap there. Quite good.
nice. So you said you've been playing a little bit over a year, about 14 months or so. When did you start your journey into content creation? Did you like start the channel when you started raid and you were just like, I'm going to learn like on my channel, or did it come a lot later?
So it came when I was about 3 or 4 months in. I think it was March of last year that I started the channel, and I was just kind of like, well, maybe this is a way I could spread some positivity in the world. I know a lot of people. There's a lot of tragedy out in the world, and sometimes people are playing Raid to wind down, to relax, to have fun, or just because they like it. You don't know why someone is playing Raid, and I figured this could be a really good opportunity since I love this game and I seem to be getting pretty good at it, and my shards seem to be lucky. um, it could be a really good opportunity for that. So I started in March of 2024. Didn't really have like a consistent upload schedule or anything. Kind of just made videos when I wanted to, how I wanted to. It was just voiceover at first with like a screen recording.
Sure. Yeah.
Um, but then around Thanksgiving, I was like, there were some circumstances, and I was like, holy cow, I really need to invest my time into something and just go all in. So that's when I started live streaming every single day, and I've done it every single day, unless something like has come up or it's Sunday, since the week of Thanksgiving last year, and I quite enjoy it actually. I quite enjoy live streams. I think a bit more than I like recording. I don't know. I like both for different reasons, but I really like the human interaction aspect of live streaming.
Yeah, I think that's the appeal to it, right? Is to actually talk to people in real time, and to have a community, of people who are interacting and getting to know each other. Because the game, I know you started the game by playing with a friend, but the game really isn't a social game, right? It's a very, very much a single
Right.
player experience. And so I think
Right.
I'm a social gamer in the sense that whether it's board games or sports or online games, like I love MMOs and games where like you can build communities and have friends and hang out with people. And the game is almost secondary. Like I want a good game, but I don't
Yeah.
really care that much about the game if I have a great community. And so, for instance, I've said this before on this channel. Like I believe that without the community that Raid has, I probably would have played the game for about a year and left. And now I'm going on 4 years. And
Sure.
it's entirely because of the community. And part of that has been my experience with live streams as well. And when I went and watched I've caught 3 live streams now. One of the thing that has struck me about your live stream is that positivity. You're having fun, you're laughing, you're interacting with people, and it seems to be a very, it's not there's no tension there. It's just, sometimes I think people are afraid to get into content creation when they're relatively new in a game because they feel like they're not expert enough. But the truth of the matter is
Mhm.
that's not what everybody watches for. Not everybody wants a tutorial on how to beat, the end game content. Some people want to learn and be on a journey with a community that is like-minded.
Yeah.
And I was struck by that with your live stream. It was really cool. So let me ask you this. Like, is that something that you feel like, you've intentionally put into your live streams, or is it just that's just an offshoot of what's happened, maybe your personality and a little bit of the RNG of who your viewers are?
I think it's got to be all of it at once. I mean, if I put myself into my content, which is what I try to do, and I'm a genuinely positive, a genuinely kind person, which is who I try to be, then first of all, everybody's going to see that in the content. And second of all, I'm going to attract like-minded viewers,
Right.
those are going to be the people who view my channel. So it's honestly a little bit of both. I have a great community. Um, there's been very little that has gone wrong in my community, guys. So I'm very appreciative to the community, just as much as, I would hope they are to me, I guess. But
Yeah.
there's that push pull between the creator and the community, and I don't think you can have one without the other. You know what I mean? They
I
feed
think
into
that's
each other.
great. Yeah, I think that's great, and definitely our community as well. You know, you build a Discord, and you can just like let it go and be whatever you want it to be, or you can kind of curate it a bit and try to direct it. I do think your personality shows up as a content creator in your community. Um, but yeah, it's great, and having a Discord community, I think, is part of being good at the job. Like you need to have
Yeah,
a
yeah.
content like a community that supports you, and you
Mhm.
want to give them your best. Like having specific people
Yeah.
where you're like, I'm thinking about this audience. They're asking the questions, and it's the same people who are commenting and supporting me in my videos. And I want to give them content that is going to help them in the game. So it is that symbiotic relationship. You know, you can't just be a big personality, I think, and not care. You
Right.
know, like you have to invest yourself in it, and it comes through in your live streams. Um, so let me ask you about this, because I did ask you this. We tried to do this collab last week and we had some technical difficulties, but I asked you at that point. You know, my audience here in Raid is older. My average age is like 38 to 43 for my viewers, and like the percentages of like teenagers and people in their 20s is very, very small for my channel. But I'm wondering about yours. Do you find that like you have a lot of older viewers like I do just because the Raid player base is older? Or do you find that you are attracting sort of the younger echelon of viewers?
So I do have quite a few of the younger audience who watch my videos. I think it's my videos that they watch because the audience I tend to pull for my live streams seems to be a more of that older community, which is
Hmm,
really interesting to me because I think I talk and act like I'm in the younger generation.
sure.
So it's very interesting to me that the older community wants to come watch the live streams. I find that odd. I don't really think I've ever experienced anything quite like that anywhere else in my life. But hey, you know what? All are welcome.
Right,
I'm
exactly.
not choosy with who I talk to. I want to help everybody. You know what I mean?
It's funny. My first career, my main career in my life has been as an educator, and there was a period of time where I was teaching night classes right after college, and I was teaching it to adults who had been in the workforce for a while and were trying to go back to grad school at like 30, 35, 40 years of age. And I was 23, and I was the instructor because I had the mastery of the material that they needed. And it was an odd sensation for a while, to be like, to feel like a little bit of imposter syndrome. Like I'm teaching 40-year-olds. What the heck? I'm just a kid. I didn't feel like I had it. And then after the first or second class, I remember talking to a particular, gentleman, and I was like, you're 35, you're married, you have kids, you're going back to school after 10 years in the workforce. Why are you listening to me? And he's like, because you know what you're talking about. Like when I do what you say, I get the results that you tell me I will. And that's all I care about. I don't care if you were 15 years old. Do you know what I mean? Like if you tell me something and it works for me, that's what I care about. And so I'm wondering if like you've gotten that feedback, or if that's any part of your consciousness, or you just like, no, I'm just doing what I'm doing. And if it works for people, great. And if it doesn't, that's okay too.
Well, there's a couple different aspects to that. One, I think the comment I have gotten the most from the older part of my audience is they watch me because they find me entertaining.
Okay.
Um, which is really interesting. I think for the younger part of my audience, it's probably a bit more like what you say, but I also the kind of content I make isn't always like guides or whatever, you know.
Right.
I have a really weird roster. I can't really make teams that pander to the most amount of people because I've been free to play most of my account. I recently started spending just to make shard pull videos once a month. Even at that, my roster is just weird. Like I've said, it's been incredibly lucky. It has champs, and I use strategies that I haven't seen any, and it's good because it forces me to be creative with what I've got. You know what I mean? And I quite like that aspect of making the content. I recently put out a video on the Nether Spider. You know, It was a video I had done a while back, but I thought I'd remake it with my updated gear and everything. It's Geomancer and Morrigan make the team work, and then Morrigan spits out the heal reduction on the boss. Geomancer burns the boss, and then I've got Bot L and Geomancer with their AoE A1s force the Spiderlings to counterattack, reflects the damage back onto the boss, and the boss kills itself. There you go. Like,
Beautiful.
that's pretty
Yeah.
much how it works. And it's 100% clear as long as you have the right accuracy and can heal yourself enough, right? You know?
Yeah.
So, making creative teams like that, but that's not a team that I've really seen for Nether Spider. I see Cornelia soloing it. You know, I see Newt, triple Newt, double Newt, whatever. You know,
Right.
I do not see Geomancer with Morrigan as a kind of top tier strategy for Nether Spider. So those are the kind of videos I like to make. Because first of all, they are the only thing that I can make.
Yeah.
Second of all, they're fun.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. You know what's that answer will resonate with my viewers because that is, in a nutshell, the free to play experience, right? You don't have like everybody's gonna say if you're free to play for a year, you're gonna be like, I have a weird roster. Like that's the number one statement. It's like I don't have the meta champions. I have to be creative in solving my problems. And when you have content creators who are doing the same, it first of all, it just makes you feel like you're not alone in it. You know, like, oh man, all these people spend so much crazy money. It's like, well, you don't spend crazy money. I don't spend any money. You know, it's like there are free to play people who can be successful in this game. So, you know, the viewers can like relate to that. But then also there is sometimes when I put out a video like that where I'm using a weird comp and somebody's like, oh, I have that comp. Like I don't have the comp that any other content creator has ever talked about, but I have your weird comp. And so I feel like my video is helping a very specific group of people.
Right.
So yeah, so now I'm going to go have to check out your Agrath. Was it no, it was the Frost Spider, because
I have one for the Frost Spider too. I think Quintus and Skeletor make a unique combo.
There you go.
For the Frost Spider. But,
so go check out these videos if if you're looking for some creative ways to solve some Doom Tower problems. No, I love that. I love that. So what I want to do is I want to transition over to talking about the Hell Hades free to play challenge because I know you've entered that challenge. You didn't do it last year, I'm assuming.
No, I wasn't a content creator at that time last year. I didn't even know who Hell Hades was at that time last year.
So is this the first time you have started a new account since your original account?
It is not actually. I have an alt that I really don't play much, but it has Dune Lord Gregor on it. So hey, there's that. That one is completely free to play. And it's quite a fun account, I think. I still need to actually log in and get my Alice on it. But yeah, I have one more account. I've started another account, didn't play it. It was literally just a test to see if a promo code worked. But this is the first time I've actually dedicated a good chunk of time consistently into a new account.
Okay, so let's go jump onto this is my Hell Hades free to play challenge account. We were talking off air and we actually have very, very similar rosters on our challenge accounts, and we're both in the bottom half or bottom third of the leaderboards. So you know it's funny because I'm constantly reminding people like it's a 90-day competition. It's a 90-day competition, but there are challenges here that I think are realistic challenges for new free to play players. So I know that you and I have. Who did you choose as your starter champion?
My starter champion was Kale.
Okay, so you have Kale, Alice. You also took the Sun Wukong promo code, right?
Did take the Wukong, yes.
And then we all have Tagore and Ugo. And then I think there was one more champion that you mentioned. There's somebody else you have?
Sabbatha.
Sabbatha, right. Who was the free champion who I have not pulled yet. I have my 2 copies of Sabbatha in my my summoning portal, awaiting the next fusion. So let's talk about the difficulties of it, right? We're starting with this kind of strange roster because there's some very good epic supports that we got for free. We've got Wukong, who's a great champion for free. We've got Alice, who's a great champion for free. There's a lot of overlap between Sun Wukong, Alice, and our starter champions. What was your initial strategy going in? Did you have a plan of how you were going to try to grow this account?
Yeah, and I think I learned a lot from it as well. So my plan initially was to just bust through campaign, and then try to get speed.
Okay.
So I chose Wukong because I figured, that second to last stage on campaign, the Hollowed Halls, really messes you up if you only have magic affinity.
That's
So I
true. Yeah.
thought if I take on Wukong, he's going to be my damage dealer anywhere that a magic damage dealer wouldn't be good. I think the Veldemar Strait or whatever is also another place when you
Yeah.
need a Spirit Affinity damage dealer.
Yeah.
So that was my thought in taking Wukong. What I should have done is do what Hell Hades did and pick Taragi, because Clan Boss is currently my weakest area, and I've had no shard luck. I also adopted the strategy of pull everything first week, and then save for events. I
Okay.
did that strategy because I know you need champs early on.
Yeah.
You really need them. The more limited your roster is, the more, or sorry, the less you can do. You know what I mean? So I was like, okay, I'm gonna pull champs and figure out what I can do. I didn't get any good champs, no good epics. At least no epics that didn't do what someone else already did.
Right.
No good, no legendaries. I saw YST, who's actually on my team. He got like 3 legendaries, and I was like, what the actual heck, man?
Yeah.
But I've got nothing other than what we've been given for free. I've been incredibly unlucky in that regard, and at the moment, I'm stuck. I have no idea what to do right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that is actually exactly the situation I think a lot of players face at this point in an account. So I think we're currently I'm a server day behind, so I'm on day 12, but everybody else is on day 13. You just got your batch of 500 energy today. Um and you get those shards early game, you pull them all and you hope you hit crazy good champions. And if you don't, it's just like, well, now what, right? Because I didn't get those champions. And yet at the same time, this is why I said it was so weird. We actually have great champions, right? Like we don't
Yeah,
typically start with
do.
Ugo or Tagore or Wukong. Like just starting with Wukong as a free promo code champion as opposed to maybe a login when he was, new, or you had to pull him from a shard for a while. And it's like plus the Atlas. So it's almost like we have too many good champions. But what I've noticed personally is that they're really in just two particular areas. There's a lot of overlap for our supports and then a lot of overlap for our damage dealers. So the things we're missing are like we have no turn meter fill, right? We have no increase
Right.
attack champion. We have no uh uh I'm trying to say we have a mini cleanse, but we have no block
Right.
debuffs. That's what I was thinking. We have no block
Right.
debuffs. And so we have good champions, but we don't have a full like team composition for dungeons or stuff like that. We don't have a lot of multi hitters.
Right.
I took Athel specifically to get a multi hitter. That was my strategy. And I
Okay.
took
Yeah.
Wukong for the speed aura, honestly, in arena.
Hmm. Yep.
And I feel like I'm still missing quite a bit, and we'll all get high Gatune at 30
Yeah.
days, so that'll help. But
Right.
but we have a lot of gaps, and so if you've missed on your shards, you might be thinking, now what? Like, what do I do now? So
The
let
best
me,
thing.
yeah, go ahead.
The best thing I've thought of to do is I just have to keep changing one piece of gear, then rerunning a dungeon, trying to get a little farther, see if I can farm one stage higher, that
Yeah.
kind of thing. That's the best I've been able to come up with, but I'd like to hear your thoughts as well.
Well, let me ask you this: how high are you in the dungeons?
Let's see. We're at around stage 12 dragon. We're about right where you are in the event dungeon. I think I farmed stage 8 there.
Okay.
I haven't touched Fire Knight. I haven't touched Ice Golem. I haven't touched Spider because for me, the way I was thinking about it is, okay, we farm a bunch of dragon, we farm a bunch of event dungeon. Event dungeon gives us not only the pinpoint gear, which is good for speed, actually less good for speed than I thought because on my main account, I have all the ascensions. Here I have to grind up my ascensions, so the accessories are
Right.
not as helpful. Um, I was like, if we can get that crit rate, crit damage gear, that's going to be super helpful. If we can get the speed gear from Dragon, that's going to be super helpful. I haven't touched any other dungeon because the impact that gear will make, other than in Fire Knight, Fire Knight later on, is not going to be that high. So I've been investing all my energy into Dragon, into the event dungeon, trying to get something good so that I can boost my account a little bit more.
Yeah. So what I have found is, we're about the same progress in terms of dungeons. The difference being that I've also pushed all of the dungeons. So I have Spider's Den at
Okay.
9 right now. And I haven't pushed this in several days, so I could probably clear 10, which is a good place to farm Spider, right? Because 10 has those weird extra drop rates.
Right.
And then Ice Golem I pushed to 10 just to make sure I did all the missions. So what I would say is if you haven't focused on the Arbiter missions, or if you haven't focused on the challenges, these can be ways to get you some extra
Yeah.
resources and give you some focus while you're kind of just grinding experience and all that stuff. Maybe getting another 6-star, like you can do these along the way. And they also give you things like, some tomes, some epic tomes, some extra shards.
Mhm.
Certainly, arena. You want to be in arena every day and getting this,
Yep.
because the more you can build your Great Hall, the less pressure you have on your gear, which is awesome.
Right.
Plus, you just get Forge the Magisteel. You get Magisteel here, right? So
Yep.
you need
Yep.
that. And then the other place is Faction Wars. And I put a video out on this. This is a method I've been using for a couple of years now about, farming every single faction, like right from the beginning of the game, by using your chickens to do it. So I think I'm
Oh,
currently working
okay.
on Dark Elves. So like here, I have, I'm just leveling up 3-star chickens, and 2-star chickens, and I'll just throw them in here, and it'll just allow me to farm stage 2. I can farm stage 2, maybe stage 3. Sometimes if you get, a decent champion and you push them to 40 or something, you can farm as far as stage 8 sometimes. And this will help you get better gear out of the forge. So I highly recommend that to anybody who's stuck, is like, as you're grinding 6-stars, pick your food according to the next faction crypts that are going to open, and then try to get forge materials. Even if you just get like one piece every 2 or 3 days, that's going to, over time, just build up.
Hmm.
So, I've got opportunities to get even 4-star perception gear. It looks like maybe 5-star resilience gear, and that's helpful. Have you done much in the faction crypts, or did you basically just focus on your starter champion faction crypt?
Well, I've done basically nothing in the faction crypts, because my champs are trash. I
Yeah.
like. Well, they're not trash, but the ones I have pulled are trash. They're not even usable. I got Horden. I do not think he's usable in Faction Wars. The most exciting pull that I got was like Vergus, and one of the hardest things for me, that it's a rut that I may be falling into, is like, okay, if I don't use it on my main account, it could still be good here. You know what I mean? I think that's a mistake that I may have made. However, because of my main account's quite unique, I think I actually have to learn to throw all the thinking out the window, because my main account's just weird as far as
Yeah.
roster goes, as far as playstyle goes, as all of that. Um, but I'm actually quite excited for Vergus. Take him to 50, and start building an ally protection clan boss team. I think that would be super sweet.
Yeah, he's an excellent ally protector. It's the thing about it is it's on a 3-turn cooldown, which is what you want, right? So it's 2
Right.
turns up, 3-turn cooldown, because some of them are on a 4-turn cooldown, and that's not nearly as useful. Plus,
Yeah.
he's a great soloer. You can use him in a lot of places. What I will say is this: any epic that you pull in any faction early on, if you just take them to level 40, like in a timely place, like during a champion training or something, you need to get somebody, some levels. They will probably allow you, really almost any champion will allow you to farm at least like stage 3 of the faction crypts. And you might not think, well, that's not a lot of stars. I'm just getting 1-star, 1-star, 1-star. It's like, but you're getting forge materials. You're getting
Right. Right.
1-star glyphs. Those 1-star glyphs are
Yeah.
going to matter. It's like, I think a
Yep.
lot of
Yep.
people undervalue bad champions in the early game, because honestly, any epic is a natural 40, right? You don't have to promote
Right.
them, you don't have to invest anything into them except a little bit of XP, and all of a sudden they're going to give you something. So I would say, if you're really struggling for gear, which I am this year, by the way, as well, I'm struggling for gear. This forge is going to be your best friend. And resilience is going to be very useful on a lot of champions. This is not a great set for most of the game, but in the early game, you get more pieces of this than probably anything else that you can consistently farm, except for perception. And so you may as well use those pieces. And a lot of them are going to be 5-star pieces, you know? So it's like, you get a 5-star speed boost in the resilience set, and it's like, well, that's my best speed boot. That's what happened to me on this account. My best speed boot is a resilience speed boot. So, so I'm using it, you know? Yeah. Okay. So
for sure.
So let's say
we seem to be in a very similar place here.
Yeah. There are a lot of similarities here. So what is the area you're feeling best about on your account? Like, where do you feel like you've been progressing decently well, or you think like in the future, in the near future, in the next week or so, you're going to be able to make some moves?
Dragon. It's got to be Dragon. I can farm the Spirit Affinity after stage 8 consistently. What is that? Is that stage 11?
Stage 11.
Stage 11 of Dragon consistently. So that's given me 5-star gear in a speed set, which is great. That's what I feel most proud of. I'm also making moves in Nightmare Campaign. So I've cleared out all the way through Brutal. I've 3-starred like Rock's Castle in Nightmare, which is quite good. But I don't know that I'm actually going to be able to clear because just my gear is subpar. And I've, we had the 1-week gift promo code or whatever. We get the free 6-star perception crafts. All of it has been trash for me. Like the only thing as far as free gear goes that has been good is like the first 2 immortal pieces that we get from clearing campaign or whatever. Like my gear luck has been awful. So like,
out of curiosity,
I don't sit here and complain about it, but like it is a obstacle in my way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Gear is almost always for a free-to-play player the biggest obstacle. We think that our roster is, but it's not, right? Because we get, like we were just saying, we have good champions here. We don't have a full team composition. We don't have every role covered yet. But like Ugo will continue to be played on this account for at least 2 years, like up to Brutal Hydra at least, which means that's a very good champion that I can invest in and always feel comfortable that she's giving me value. There's never a loss of value in investing in Ugo. But she doesn't have a turn meter fill, and I need one. You know, it's like, okay, so there are some other things. But at the same time, the performance that I'm going to get out of Ugo is going to be based entirely on her gear. If she doesn't have good gear, she's going to be an okay champion. If she gets good gear, she's going to be a phenomenal champion.
Right.
But, you know,
and
so go ahead.
That's why I'm such a proponent. You know, I've done this to myself at least twice. I did this on a takeover once of just completely taking all the gear off your champs and rebuilding them. You know, you will see things that you didn't see before. It will make your entire roster better. It will make everybody able to perform better. And if there's any roles you miss that you have on someone in about subpar gear, you can then take that role, rebuild, and maybe take some gear off a champ that's giving you another role that you don't need 2 of, and put it on that champ that you don't have what they do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it's a super effective way to boost your progress. However, that's not particularly helpful on these, brand new free to play accounts, because we don't have a lot of good gear stacked, and we don't have a large roster that's holding a lot of potentially good gear that could give us different combinations.
Yeah, if you have good gear, you tend to know it because there's just not that much of it.
Right.
On the flip side, if you do go through a roster rebuild, the nice, aspect of that right now is that the small roster allows you to do that relatively quickly. So you don't necessarily need to wait for a weekend where you have a free gear removal. If you just have like a 2-hour coupon, that might be more than enough time to re-gear everybody and not spend a ton of silver doing it. But that means you have to get into Centranos and get yourself one. It's like, so that's a little bit tricky. But okay, I wanted to ask you before we move on. I almost forgot. You said you started to push Nightmare Campaign. Who's your duo that you're using?
It's going to be Tagore and Alice. Alice was my first 6-star. She's really good. Oddly enough, she has a really good cleanup mechanic because of her passive. So if she kills someone, she'll just reset. Preferably, you just use one skill, right? And she'll just reset the A2 or the A3, and then she'll just keep nuking everybody down consistently. And Tagore, with the increased speed, with the heal, with the revive, he's so clutch. He's such a carry. Plus the aura is actually pretty good as well.
The aura is very
So
nice.
Tagore
Yeah.
and Alice are going to be my duo there.
Yeah, so that's like me. My duo is Athel and Tagore, for the same reason, but I my first 6-star was Athel, not Alice. I do like Alice's
Okay,
reset. The one limitation on that reset is it's on a 3-turn cooldown, right? So she won't
right.
reset every time, but the A2 hits nice and hard. So it's like you can have it, kill with the A1, reset the A1, I'm sorry, the A2, reset the A2, use the A2 again, and then use the A3 on the next wave or whatever. And Tagore actually has a decent AoE with the increased speed and the heal on his A2. And if you book it, it's on a 3-turn cooldown. So yeah, I found he's the speed. I'm sorry, he's the aura lead, and he's the
Mhm.
increased speed champion. And then you bring in a damage champion with him, and even if the nuker dies, he just brings him back. So,
Yep.
in a lot of cases, you're pretty good. Plus, they're the same affinity. So if he's the lead, he's often
Yeah.
the target, and he's tankier. So
Yep.
he'll absorb the
Yeah.
damage. Yeah. Yeah, it's really
He's
nice.
such a carry. I
He
think
is.
everybody in this free to play challenge, at least the content creators, are finding that could Tagore is just the carry. Ugo might be better later on, but Tagore is carrying all of us early game, as far as I can tell.
That's definitely been my experience as well. The only thing about Ugo that I think is something that I've made sure is better than what I put on Tagore. Like I put a lot of, effort into Tagore. He's gotten the books. He's gotten, he got the
Yep.
ascension potions or awakening potions first or whatever. But the one thing that I made sure is that she's faster, right? Because she has that
Yeah,
decreased
yeah.
defense. I still
Yep.
need to book it to get it to 100% because right now it's at 80%, which is, man, when I miss, it just makes me mad. Makes me mad. But she needs to be fast, and then that means on the second go round, she's got that cleanse available for you, which is clutch. But he's
Yeah,
by far he's been the more influential of the two supports for me as well.
makes sense.
Any, yeah,
Makes sense.
out of this, because this is kind of a new experience for you being in the challenge itself, and then
Yeah.
you haven't re-rolled that many accounts from the beginning. Anything that you've learned specifically in the first 10 or 12 days here that was either surprising to you or maybe something that you're like, oh, that's going to be really helpful to lean into that new thing that I just discovered, or anything like that?
Well, that's been something I've been trying to figure out. Like what is the lesson here? Like why is it that, I see YST or Nub or whoever else, you're doing a slow roll strat. I'm doing kind of a mixture, right?
Hmm.
So like why is it that all these people already have 2, 3, 6-star champions? I'm sitting with my one that I got a week in. That's not necessarily a bad thing. All it means is that I have something to learn. And so
Sure.
what is, you can view it as a mistake or you can view it as a strategy difference, that I made in the beginning. Should I have farmed campaign more? Well, I couldn't farm campaign because I didn't have enough gear, so I went to farm some gear. Then when I farmed some gear, I came back to campaign. That was fine. You know what I mean? So like, is it my energy allocation? Is it just something that I missed? Is it luck? It could just be pure luck with like how the gear rolls or whatever. Um, I don't really know. I don't really know what it is I'm supposed to be learning here because if I did know, I would just change it. You know what I mean?
Sure. Well, I mean, I'm looking at the leaderboard right now. This is the first level 60. So this just accounts for how many days it took you to get your first 60. And we had 3 people who got their first 60 on day 1, which is
Mhm.
crazy, right? Because that's
Yeah.
really, really fast. And then you are down here with 7 days. You're number
Mhm.
48. I am not on the list. I am below 50. I think I was the last content creator to make my first 6-star, and I think it took me 9 days. Um, and honestly, I have done it very fast before. I've done it in, I think the fastest I ever did was like 2 or 3 days. And typically I usually
Mm.
do it somewhere around day 4 to 6. That's like the most common space. Um, and this time it was just slower. And I do think that if you look at the overall leaderboard, and then you look at like how fast people got their 60s, there's some correlation, but not entirely. There are a lot of people who got early 60s who are sort of in the middle of the pack or towards, the bottom half of the pack. Um, and then there are people who got it late and are still in the middle of the pack, matching those people who got it in the first or second day. So I don't know that it matters how fast you get your 60. It's do you keep that pressure on and build a second 60 and a third and a fourth? Or do you start going hunting for other resources in other locations? So for instance, let's see if we jump back to my account. One of the things that I noticed this year, which was a little bit different than probably in years past, because I didn't focus on it as much, is I didn't push campaign for the first week. Like I didn't even get into brutal until probably like day 7 or 8. And
Oh, interesting.
in years past, I would try to get into it and as soon as I could, day 2. And so I was farming the Deadlands, stage 3 in brutal with my 50 Athel. She was clearing it by herself and I was just leveling up food here. And then I got her to 6 stars and I didn't actually improve. Like she's not stronger at 6 stars as a campaign farmer than she was at 5. So I'm like, what's going on? So I'm still farming the exact same place. So I've gotten much more value out of her 6-star in clan boss, right? Because then you get the capstone mastery and now you're getting all that giant slayer damage. It's helped me in dungeons in a couple of places. But honestly, there's been less progress out of that 6-star than I expected. So does that mean that pushing 6 stars is not as valuable as everybody thinks it is? And maybe that's why we're seeing people back off it a little bit. Is it getting like your weakest champions a little bit stronger and getting more 50s? And I'm not sure. I think it depends on the champion. It depends on your gear. But you have to adapt to what you've been shown. Whatever your experience is, you have to adapt to that. And you can't, like you said, maybe you have to forget about your main account a little bit because this is a new account that has a different challenge and you need to adapt to the one that is in front of you if you want to succeed here. Do you have a goal? Do you have a new goal for like what you want to do, say, in the first 30 days? Have you thought about it that way? Or are you kind of just still absorbing and learning and adapting?
I am completely and totally approaching this as a learning experience. So something I have never done on any of my, I've only started a couple accounts, but something I've never done is get a 60 within the first 7 days. Okay, now I know how to do that for the future, Now
Yeah.
I know how to advise other people to do that because I'm a content creator. That's part of my job, you know what I
Right.
mean? So I'm completely and totally, I'm not approaching this as a competition. I am approaching this as a complete learning experience because I've never been good at the early game. I still don't think I'm good at the early game.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to just milk this challenge for all it's worth information wise so that I can then extend that to, I don't know, other content creators if they're interested in collab or whatever else, or to my community because they're the people that I'm serving, right? That's kind of the mission. So I'm just, it's complete, total learning, humble experience.
I think that's good because I'll say honestly, when I started my channel, I had been playing Raid probably close to 2 years. I think it was about 2 years. And the first 2 years, the first like 14 or 16 months that I played Raid, I played very slowly. I didn't get into Arena for a long time. I didn't really try pushing Clan Boss. I didn't care about that. In fact, there were like 2 months I wasn't even in a clan. I was just like, I didn't even know Clan Boss was a thing. I wasn't doing Arena because I didn't even know the Great Hall was like, it contributed to PvE progress. Like I didn't know that. And so I was just learning about the dungeons and the champions and like kind of getting into it a little bit. And eventually I started to speed up, but my progress at 12 months was far behind, way, way behind what I think probably even the average experience is. But now, if I start an account, my first 12 months like of a new account would probably cruise past 90% of players because I've done it so many times now. I've started new accounts so often. But those first, 4 or 5 accounts, I still didn't know how to speed up the account. I didn't know how to get progress. I didn't know how to have a philosophy for account building because there are different ways you can approach it and still be successful. We're seeing that here in the program. So, you're going through this and you're learning, and I think that's useful. And I think it's also useful for other players to watch your experience, learn from your mistakes, learn from your successes. And so, like, speaking of which, let's ask you that for one of our last questions here is, are there very specific mistakes you're like, oh, I would never do that again? And is there something that you've learned where you're like, I have to do this every time? Like, is there one, don't ever do this, and one, always do this?
Yeah, so I actually think what you said about 6 stars not being as important is very interesting to me because I've had a very similar experience. It does really depend on your gear. Um, so something that I would probably still push my 60. I think that's still important, and the reason is because your 60 is max potential.
Right.
You know, that champion is always going to be on the account, and now have the best stats that they can possibly have, which puts them in the best position to be good. You know what I mean? Something that I've always struggled with, which I think this is a mistake, but I'm not sure how to play around it, is the later stages of like hard and brutal campaign. You know, I had to 50 my Tagore in order to get those done. It was that a mistake? No, I do not regret 50ing Tagore. But it took away food that I could have used to make my first 60 faster. You know
Right.
what I mean? Um and so is that a mistake? I would I thought so at first, you know. I By the way, I keep everybody updated on the channel. I do these free to play account updates relatively, often. Um and like, so was that a mistake? Well, you can make an argument either way. For on one hand, I needed to clear hard and brutal campaign. On the other hand, it took away from me getting my first 60. You know, you could make an argument that Alice wasn't the right 60. I would personally disagree with that argument. Um, I think my experience with Kale shows that he's a better poisoner than he is a damage dealer.
Yeah.
At least when we're talking about having Alice and Wukong alongside him. So he's just sitting at 40 for me. He can place the poisons at 40. He's fully booked. All that kind of stuff. I don't really need him any higher. I'm hoping I get another poisoner who can do Kale's job better. You know, he
Right.
still does the most damage for me in Clan Boss, which is probably the only reason I've kept him, oddly enough, because Alice is the same affinity. She nukes, does the other jobs better. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I think
So
I think it is
mistake
interesting
or playstyle.
when you're talking about is something a mistake. I would say, like, even though I've run up 25 accounts at this point, every new account is a little bit different. And this year, I think I made some mistakes, but mistakes in free to play are rarely fatal. Like,
Yeah.
they're fatal, they can be fatal mentally. Like, they can get you down and get you distracted and get you discouraged. But typically, any champion that you build, you're going to have value out of somewhere at some point, and you can usually recover from any situation. So, for instance, I think, one of my mistakes may have been that I bought Alice's masteries as soon as I got her. I was like, I'm going to buy her masteries. She's going to be my next 6-star. I'm going to invest in this heavily. And then I started to think about it, and I was like, well, I made Athel my first 6-stars. I've got her masteries. They're the same affinity. They're both nukers. Maybe what I should have done is invested in Wukong, who actually is a different affinity nuker. So then at least I would have had nukers in 2 different affinities. And that argument makes sense to me. But now, since I've already bought Alice's masteries and I'm going to get the 5-star soul on her, I'm like, well, I have to invest in her. And ultimately, you know what? That's not a bad thing because she's a good champion. She's going to give me something that Athel doesn't. She gives me a lockout. I can build her to play a different role than Athel. That's going to be helpful. Athel gives me a weaken, right? That's better for boss killing. So there are enough differences here where I'm going to turn this mistake into a strength over the course of these 90 days.
Right.
There are some mistakes you can't take back. Oh, I built 2 starter champions. Yeah, well, now you got to deal with that. Like, but maybe if you built Elhain and you built Kale, well, now you've got a poisoner and you've got an arena nuker. And you still try to make the most out of it. So no mistake is fatal here. It's just a matter of learning and adapting. And then as you build your roster moving forward, keeping in mind what you already have, right? So like now,
Yeah.
building a 3rd starter champion nuker, like that's probably the bigger mistake than building the 2nd. So it's like don't do that again. But yeah, I think that's really cool. And it sounds like you're having, the experience that some of us thought of, which is you built Alice as your first 6-star. Is she your campaign farmer then?
Will be. Yeah, when her gear is not there, but she will be, yes.
So on Brutal, because I know you're farming Nightmare right now, but on Brutal, are you farming 12-3 or are you farming further back or are you farming hard?
12-3, just her yet.
Yeah, okay.
I can't do it yet. And
yeah.
that's the state of my gear.
Yeah. And have you put the lifesteal gear on her then, or do you have lifesteal gear on anybody, or no?
Lifesteal's on Kale because he's at 40 and he's squishy.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So
Plus,
it
the lifesteal steel gear I got was terrible. So
yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, with the lifesteal gear change that they did this year, we have worse gear than we typically do for lifesteal, and it has had a major impact. So unless you've gotten lucky with some other gear pulls, it puts you in a bad place. But all right, listen, this has been really interesting. It's great to, have this conversation with you, introduce you to the viewers here. Do you have anything you want to say, before we go about the Hell Hades free to play challenge? Any last, tips, tricks, or something about your channel you want to, whatever you go ahead and just say something.
Well, I hope to see everyone on live stream.
Yeah.
I hope you all make your way over. It's at 8 p.m. Eastern time every day except Sunday, unless I put an announcement in my Discord saying otherwise, you know what I mean? So I hope to see you all there. I know that there are viewer overlaps, which is actually pretty cool. And everything, and I want to thank you, Colred, for having me on the channel. This has been a sheer delight and a pleasure, and I enjoyed every second of it.
Well, thank you for coming on the channel, and like I said, I've caught the live stream a couple of times. By the way, Felraus also does free takeovers every once in a while, so you want to check out his live stream. If you can't get one of my takeovers, maybe you can get one of his, or if you can't get one of his, come and try to get one of mine. But yeah, another observation I made recently we were talking about in my last live stream was that we all do takeovers differently too. So it's just kind of interesting to compare how different content creators approach that particular type of content. But all right, well, Felraus, thanks for being on the channel. Thanks everybody for hanging out today. I have been Colred, he has been Felraus, and we will see you in another video soon.